Ready? Second. Good evening. I see we have our part 2 here of our policy and priorities meeting. So we'll continue on here. We've got quorum. So for March 18th, adoption of the agenda. So I guess I'll have to ask if anyone wants any changes. Does anybody want any changes for the agenda that is proposed? Seeing none, we'll adopt the agenda for March 18th, regular meeting of committee be adopted as circulated.
On a motion by Councillor Stewart.
On a motion by Councillor Stewart.
All those in favor?
All those in favor? Okay, motion passed. Do any councillors have any disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof? Councillor Hildebrand.
While I support the interim control bylaw and creation of bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality, I have considered all presentations and information present to me on the matter of 4.3 and have made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Thank you very much. So noted. Anyone else? Councillor Trophy.
While I support the interim control bylaw and the creation of the bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality, I've considered all the presentations and information presented to me on the matter of 4.3 Cannabis Advisory Committee, and have made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Thank you. So noted. Councillor Stewart.
While I support the interim control bylaw and the creation of bylaws to address cannabis production in the municipality, I have considered all presentations and information presented to me on the matter of 4.3 and have made my decision based on the basis of that information.
Thank you. So noted. New business, section 4.1, report regarding the execution of the River Estates Phase 2 subdivision agreement. Did you read the file number?
I'm going to read the motion.
Okay. This motion, that Policy and Priorities Committee receives this Department of Community Planning and Development report as it pertains to file number 26T19-012018 relating to River Estates Phase 2 draft plan of subdivision, and that committee recommend that council provide final approval of the River Estates Phase 2 subdivision, file number 26T19-012018, and that committee directs staff to prepare the bylaw for consideration by council, authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute the subdivision agreement between the town of Pelham and River Realty Development, Inc. for the River Estates Phase 2 subdivision. All in favor? Okay, it's unanimous pass.
So you just have to sign it?
Moving right along. The next motion is the relocation of capital funds for gas main relocation for the Station Street water main replacement. That the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the report entitled Gas Main Budget Needs, Station Street Water Main Replacement, and that committee recommend council approve the use of carry forward funds from previous years' projects to fund the additional costs associated with the water main installation. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
Whoa.
Okay.
So, and Jason, I know I've talked to you about this, and I've talked to the treasurer, acting CAO, I'm sorry. I realize that we have to get this money done. The only, and I hate to say stipulation, before I would vote, I think before council allocates this 184, I would like to see one last kick at the can at a meeting attended by you, Jason, Ryan Cook, acting CAO, Bill Duffin, the contractor who's working on Station Street, possibly the town engineer, if you think that's needed, Jason, and Jeff Yeager, the designer of that whole operation from Kerry T. Howe. I would like you to have one last kick at the can. It's a heck of a sum of money. that came out of reallocating that gas main. I can't believe the gas wants $500,000 to do a gas main. So do you see any trouble with having that meeting, Director?
Through you, Madam Chair. We can definitely have another meeting to discuss the relocation of the water main and whether it could be moved to an alternate location from what is designed to be put in right now. I will speak to a couple of points on that. We do have a contractor that's currently on site doing the water main installation work. They're approximately 50% complete on that contract of installing the water main from Highway 20 to Port Robinson Road. The issues with the gas main were identified early in the project when the contractor was on site. So the design was completed. Enbridge has certain offsets and requirements with working within their gas mains. It's a meter, and during the design where the water main is actually being located meets those requirements, those clearance requirements. When we got into doing the actual work on site, we identified that Enbridge has thrust blocks, which are mass concrete blocks which prevent the gas main from moving underground. It anchors the system. When we were doing the installation of the water main work, we identified these thrust blocks, and the way we actually identified those was whenever we do construction, when we design the work, we consult with the utility companies, and the designer will get their information where their plant's located so that we could design appropriately around that. What happened was when we ran into starting to do the work, the contractor got locates to do the excavation work before we started to dig and started the construction project. It was identified at that time that Enbridge actually put a stop work order on the project because they identified these thrust blocks, which the designer was not aware of when they designed the project. So we have to maintain a meter clearance from those thrust blocks, which are in isolated areas. But so that's what's provoked us to now put the project on hold until we can get Enbridge in to relocate that gas main. From Summersides north to Highway 20, we were able to work around the existing main the way it is. From Summersides moving south towards Port Robinson Road, there is definitely a conflict. So the gas main either has to be relocated or the water main has to be relocated. Enbridge, we approached Enbridge. They looked at the relocation of the gas main. It's 500 and some odd thousand.
501, yep.
527,000 for the relocation of the gas main. The town of Pelham, the municipality, has an agreement, a franchise agreement with Enbridge where we pay 35% of the cost of the relocation of the gas main if it's within our right of way. The agreement basically lays out the terms and conditions with respect to the utility being able to operate within our road allowance to install their mains. Whenever there's a construction project that happens and we upgrade a road or reconstruct a road and that gas main has to be relocated for whatever purpose, this is the agreement that drives the cost sharing associated with that utility relocation. In fact, the franchise agreement states that it's only when it's over a bridge or a structure that the utility company would pay 100% of the cost of the relocation. So there is a cost sharing agreement that's in place. I want to bring it to your attention that when we reconstruct Station Street and urbanize Station Street, the gas main was flagged and identified as being relocated at that point in time. So the gas main will be relocated and the town will be on the hook to relocate 35, for the relocation cost, 35% of the cost of the gas main relocation. We're looking at doing that now ahead of the Station Street reconstruction because we want to get the water main in. We could redesign the water main moving forward to relocate it to the west side of the street, but that also poses some problems and issues that we'll have to be faced with, which we can discuss in a meeting. Just to identify some of those. If we relocate the water main to the west side of Station Street, there are certain horizontal and vertical clearance requirements that you have to maintain your water main between your sanitary sewer system and your storm sewer system. So the horizontal system or horizontal clearance of 2.5 meter separation, we could probably maintain, we would push the water main to the far west side of Station Street. But all the services that, that water main will feed, most of the services will come across Station Street to the east, to the residents on the east side of the property. In order to maintain the vertical clearances of 1 meter, we would have to drop the services at that water main by 3 meters. So that poses a few operational issues for us. One is you're installing a service now to residential properties on the east side of Station Street, which will be very deep. And the other issue with that is that the length of those services will increase dramatically, which will increase the cost of your project at the end of the day. If there's a broken water service, our crews would have to go in, and to maintain those, we would have to go in, set up shoring systems, dig very deep in order to service those services, municipal services, because we'd have to work around the existing utilities. We'd have to drop the water main probably below the storm and the sanitary. In the final design, the existing sanitary basically stays where it is now. In the final design, when we urbanize the road, we drop the grade of the road, could be up to half a meter, and we're installing a 4-foot diameter trunk storm sewer down the middle of Station Street. So these are some of the things that we need to worry about. And if we move the water service to the west side of the road on Station Street, we'll have to bring those services down below the existing sanitary and get it down to where the proposed storm sewer will be relocated in its final position and location when we reconstruct that road. So these are concerns and considerations that we need to take into account when we look at redesigning. In addition to that, there will be additional engineering costs associated with having to now redesign the water main and put that onto the west side of Station Street. And there may be additional design work associated with the reconstruction of Station Street, because Station Street is designed. It is shovel ready to go when we get the funds approved to move forward with that construction. So there may be some redesign work there as well that may be on the table. So lastly, timing wise, Enbridge feels they need 5 to 6 weeks to complete the work. So it was staff's intention to try to get the approval on the relocation of the gas main so that we can get them in and out and get our contractor in to finish off their water main work late summer, early fall of this year. If we delay the process, there's the risk that obviously there'd be delays associated with redesign and installation of the water main. There also could be risk of delays of having Enbridge not have the crews available to get in there if we do give them the go-ahead. So with that, if it's council's wish to move forward with another meeting to take another look and make sure everybody's on the same page, then I need to have that commitment to get that meeting in place and have that taken care of as soon as possible.
So back to you, Director, and it's not my case usually to second guess you. I have complete faith in you and your department. It's just that when we talked about 2 months ago, you gave the estimate, and you didn't know that. We were talking maybe 35 or 40,000, and then Enbridge comes back with this ridiculous number. I mean, $500,000 to put down 370 meters of pipe. Wow. So then, of course, your estimate, through no fault of your own, all of a sudden it jumps up to 184,000. And I just, like I say, it is a lot of money, and I would really appreciate it. I'd consider a favor to ourselves if you could just get these people together and one last kick at the can. And if this has to happen, obviously we got to go ahead with it, and the sooner the better. That's all I ask as a council. Unless what other councils say.
Or any other points of discussion?
Through to you, Madam Chair. I agree with the mayor. I think for that amount of money, it's worth a second look.
Yeah. Okay.
If that's okay with the Director of Public Works.
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, we can definitely arrange that meeting. I'm happy to sit down and discuss all the options.
Great.
Obviously, the main goal would be to get a workable solution in place so that we can get our water main installation in. I know that with respect to having a contractor on site and having now a utility issue, it'd be in the town's best interest to keep that contractor moving ahead forward with their project without having to wait for utility relocations to be completed. So we can take a look at that, and there's just a number of issues and concerns that we need to take into consideration when we make those decisions. So.
Great. Great, thank you, Director.
And through you, Madam Chair, I just wanted to also clarify that when Enbridge provides their quotations, their through the franchise agreement to us, they do include a contingency. So they included a $70,000 contingency as part of the whole project, of which 35% of that would be attributed to us. So there's about $25,000 of that $185,000 that's purely contingency.
Okay, yep, thank you. Yep, I'm
Anybody
done.
else like to add to discussion? No? Okay, so then there'll be a motion to refer the report back to staff and direct a meeting with stakeholders be covered and report back then. All in favor?
So you need to call for a mover on that.
Oh, a mover. Councillor Hildebrand. Do I need a seconder? No, no seconder. Thanks, though. Okay, all in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. So here, referred. Okay. Can still sign it or no? Okay. Agenda item 4.3, Cannabis Advisory Committee. This motion, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive this report on the Cannabis Advisory Committee, and that the committee recommend that council approve the terms of reference for the Cannabis Advisory Committee, and that the committee direct staff to proceed with the advertising to recruit members to the Cannabis Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion on this? Councillor Chofie.
Yeah, I think I brought up the motion to form this committee, and it was going to be called a Cannabis Control Committee. And I'm not in agreement to some of the wording in here. So, I think it should be back to Cannabis Control Committee.
Anyone else? Councillor Stewart?
In light of what Councillor Ciolfi just said, if it's going to go forward as a Cannabis Control Committee, I don't see the use in having 2 to 3 representatives from the cannabis producers, plus a representative from an academic cannabis program. The only one that I know of in an academic program is the grower from Leviathan who's teaching at Niagara College. So I don't see that this provides a good balance at all.
Actually, I tend to agree with you on that. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor?
So, when we had committees formed in agriculture back in the 70s and 80s, because of smell related to our livestock operations, it was imperative to have everyone at the table. It doesn't matter whether we had conservationists, whether we had somebody from Toronto who had moved to the city and was dead against agriculture. You must have a dialogue at that table so that everyone can hear the other side. To not have these producers, to at least invite them. If they don't show up, that's their problem. But to be so one-sided, to not even give them the opportunity to sit on this table, it would be a huge mistake. Agriculture went through that back in the 70s and 80s, and the best thing that happened was we had everybody at the table, everybody heard each other's stories, each other's complaints, and to not have that dialogue, it'd be completely one-sided, and tell you the truth, I think it'd be a waste of time to not have their input in this committee. That's how I feel.
Anybody else like to speak?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, with regards to having an educational institution on the advisory committee, we were thinking more with regards to the Associate Dean of the Environmental Program. Niagara College has the first cannabis program in Canada, and I think it makes sense that they are in our region, and for them just to, just to be part of the advisory committee. It is a culture of the college to have advisory committees, and I do agree with the mayor that you need to have everyone at the table so they really can understand the concerns of the town. And also I think it would be helpful to have an objective person, someone from the college or from Brock University, but I would think more of the college because they have the cannabis program, and that they're just part of that committee just to provide advice.
So through you, Madam Chair, just to add to your comments, the person who's running the program at Niagara College is in fact a Pelham resident. So, and he's a little closer to one of the operations, so he's got some skin in the game too. So I don't have an issue with asking the college to come to the table. It's not Leviathan coming to the table on behalf of the college.
Through you, Madam Chair. So a lot of the, I would like to add a few more things to the terms of reference if we're at that part right now that aren't in there. I believe forwarded a set that the residents of Pelham would like to see in this committee when we brought it up to form a committee for this, the Cannabis Control Committee, and a lot of those things are there. Right now, the way it seems, there's not enough teeth in there to protect the residents of Pelham and the stakeholders of this town, and that's who we're representing.
Do you have any suggestions as to what you'd like to see changed?
Yeah, well, it's got the odor impacts, the light impacts. I wanted to put it like in the odor, who's going to control the odor? What bylaws are we going to put in there? Site plans, Ontario building codes, the current zoning for cannabis operations. And let this committee come up with the director of planning and council and form a good set of bylaws that would come in effect on October 15th. And then keep enforcing them throughout when they meet monthly after October 15th.
Would you like to add to that? Okay. So,
Did you want to hear from the director at all? Or?
sure. Would you, director, like to speak to this? Can't see over there.
Thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I think with respect to the name, Cannabis Advisory Committee, that's because these are advisory committees to council, and that's why the name was chosen, is that this is an advisory committee, all committees of council are. So, and certainly the objective of this is to provide, to do that scan of best practices and reviewing bylaws that we might be coming forward with, and having them vetted through the committee for feedback and for input. That's what this committee is going to do. That's how we envision that it would operate. And it's going to be looking at all the impacts, the land use impacts and other impacts that the cannabis production facilities have. And so we've listed some of those there in terms of odor impacts, light impacts, traffic and parking, impacts on adjacent lands and properties, including agricultural lands, stormwater management, and safety, health, and environmental concerns. So it's a fairly broad committee with a broad mandate to look at those impacts, and then we would be coming forward with bylaws, and those bylaws would be vetted through this committee in terms of their feedback and input, and then it comes back to council as part of their advice. That's how we envision the committee operating.
Just have to interrupt for just a second here because we are at 9:59. So I guess this is a motion as well, that the rules of procedure as contained in the Town of Pelham procedural bylaw be suspended, and that the specific meeting curfew time of 10 p.m. be and is hereby waived, and that the remainder of the business listed on the agenda for this meeting continue to be considered until, and this is where we need to either pick a time or go until we're concluded. So
They put an initial until.
it's already, until matters have been concluded, so, yeah. Hope you brought a lunch. So, I guess we'll make a motion or a vote on this. Is everybody in favor of moving forward until we're done? Unanimous, okay. Okay, back to Cannabis Advisory Committee. All right, so we've got some changes that one counselor, actually two counselors have proposed. So what is your suggestion?
So if they make a motion to amend the terms and give me the exact wording, then you could vote on that.
Comfortable with that?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the Director of Planning. So will we form this committee? Will they be involved with coming up, like helping out in having discussion in regards to the bylaw that's going to be taking place and working as a group? Because I know several people that indicated that they would like to be part of this committee have been doing a lot of research already with other municipalities and other organizations that are involved with this cannabis and have a lot of experience at this.
Absolutely. It says that the Cannabis Advisory Committee will review options provided by staff and conduct research related to best practices of other jurisdictions to address these land use impacts that will assist with the development of appropriate land use policies, regulations, and procedures. So that's dealing with all of our bylaws, our processes, our policies for better managing the impacts of cannabis producers in the town of Pelham. So that's the intent, that's the objective of the of this committee. So when draft bylaws are prepared, they'd be vetted through this committee for its input. And then, you know, that input would be noted and would be coming back to council for approval.
Okay, thank you.
So at this point then, if anybody would like to make an amendment and stipulate what that amendment would be, then we can change that on this motion. Councillor Trophy?
Yeah, I would like to make an amendment to increase the number of people on the committee, from the committee, to a minimum of 6.
Excuse me, so 6 residents or 6 overall?
No, 6 residents of the committee, and just 6 residents of the committee and 2 councillors.
Total?
Yep.
Anything else? Any other changes or amendments?
No, I'm good with that.
That's the only change you want to make?
But that would still include the representatives from cannabis. Is that what you're saying, Mike?
No, I like to have it just 6 residents and 2 councillors,
Yeah.
personally. That's what I would like the
You agree?
committee.
So he needs to then remove, so it's not just to change it to 6 residents. If he wants to remove membership on the advisory committee, then that has to be part of the amendment.
So do we need to vote on
Sure.
that? We would have a vote on that?
You see, he has to state it and you have to have a vote on that.
Okay, so, bear with me here. Second kick at the can for me. All right, so if you're going to make that amendment, then we would have to change the number of individuals on the committee and have a vote on that. So currently, Councillor Trophy is suggesting 6 residents on the committee and 2 councillors. So we'll have a vote on that. Would everybody agree 6 residents and 2 councillors would be the change we would be making to this motion?
And just know that, let's say one of these cannabis facility people live in Pelham, they can apply too. So just 6 residents and 2 council members.
So just for clarity, the motion would be to remove the membership, to change it from what is listed there to 6 residents and 2 councillors.
Correct, and then those
And the
residents.
director of community planning and as a designate.
Correct.
So that's the motion, to amend the terms of reference, to remove the representation and replace it with a minimum. So when you say a minimum of 6 residents, we would need clarity. Do you have a maximum?
9.
And 2 councillors and the Director of Community Planning. Okay, so that's your amendment motion.
Okay, so the amendment motion would be six residents up to a maximum of 9, and 2 counselors, and the Director of Planning. All those in favor of making this
So
amendment?
can we have further discussion before we?
Oh, for sure.
we go to this?
Absolutely.
Because we may be bouncing back and forth with motions all night long on this. The larger the committee, the tougher it's gonna get stuff done. You know, I don't see a committee with 9 residents, two counselors and director of planning. It's 12 people. It's too many people to make things move forward. I think you've got to limit that number. I think 6 is approaching the higher end of it. In addition to that, I don't think we should be discounting the fact of having someone from Niagara College. If we want to include a resident who is involved in the operations, that's fine, but we're the ones who are going to be approving the committee members, and if we see that someone works for CanTrust or whatever, we just going to flat out say, no, you can't play. You know, I think, to the mayor's point, we invite them. If they don't want to come, they don't come to the table. But I think we've got to include both sides of the issue here, not just what we may think. We should be looking at the big picture, not just one side.
What's been provided to me is that advisory reflects that the committee does not carry decision powers. That's the council jurisdiction. So they would just be advising, not carrying any power or any weight up. Thank you. Councilor Hurban.
Through you, Madam Chair. I agree, getting up to 9 can get very difficult to come up with a decision. So I'd prefer to stick with 6. Whether you have 1 or 2 counselors, I'm not sure. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty busy as it is, and I'm going to be joining another.
Come on.
But whether 2 counselors join, it's either 1 or 2. Obviously, the Director of Community Planning has to be there. I think someone from Niagara College would have great input. I'm on the fence with the cannabis producers. I've never really been involved in that kind of discussion. I'm not sure. Maybe the Director of Planning can tell us, you know, from her discussions with them, how she feels about those guys.
Well, certainly, I've had some discussions with representatives from 2 of the producers, not all 3. But 2 of them have indicated that they would certainly be open to sitting on such a committee. They too are very interested in finding solutions, and they want to work with the community to find solutions. And so they need to be at the table in order to be able to identify workable solutions. And so whenever I've had experience in my career in dealing with issues and problems and trying to solve the problem and find solutions, as you need everybody at the table. Otherwise, I think we would run the risk of whatever bylaws we come forward with aren't going to be satisfactory to those people, and you'll be subject to appeals, court applications, and whatnot. So as much as we don't like them, we don't want them here in this town, we need to have them at the table to work with them. And that's the reality. And anywhere you go, any kind of issues that you deal with, whether it was in your careers or any other problem solving, whether it's personal stuff at home. You gotta talk about it, you gotta have the right people at the table.
Madam Chair, it's not that we don't like them or we don't want them in this town. It's the way they came into this town and are disrupting the neighborhood, especially the neighborhood in the ward that I'm in and Mary Ann's in, that we're getting 15 to 30 calls per week. And these residents can't even sit out in their backyard and enjoy their swimming pool or have their windows open or hang laundry on the line because of this odor. We're just trying to rectify a problem. I know the federal government made it legal, the provincial government made it legal, but they didn't think it out to where to locate them and how close to houses and residential areas. Nobody said that we don't like them or we don't want them here. We just want to fix the problem.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, so, it would seem to me that we have to,
Well, first you have an amendment, Madam Chair, and it did say initially a minimum of 6 residents to a maximum of 9, with 2 counselors and the Director of Planning is the amendment on the table right now.
I would say that based on the feedback, it wouldn't be up to 9, based on 3 people saying 9's too many.
I would say we can reduce that to 1, Counselor.
So right now you have a minimum of 6 residents. I asked for a maximum number because I don't know what that maximum is going to be if it just says minimum. So I would need to hear if the counselor wants to change that, or if there's an amendment to remove the maximum of 9 and change the word minimum of 6 to a maximum of 6. I need to know what that membership is going to be.
Staying with 9?
6, 9, and 1, Counselor. I'll remove 1.
Okay, so then I guess we would vote on that. You got that? 6, 9, and 1 council.
6, 9, and 1 counselor.
Okay,
So we need to call a vote on that.
all right, so we'll call a vote on the amendment that would be 6 residents up to a maximum of 9 residents, 1 counselor, and the Director of Planning. All those in favor of that amendment? Okay, there's 2, so
Call
doesn't,
for the opposed.
all opposed? 3, so
So that
that's
amendment
denied.
is lost.
Does not carry, okay. And I'm not able to vote because I'm chair, yes? I can vote. Okay, that's great. All right, well,
Which way did you vote?
I didn't, because I didn't know that I was able to. Okay, so,
the chair can
all right, I actually would lead to 9 being too many. So I wouldn't go with 9, but I probably would go with, say, 7. So I don't know if we can vote again on making that change.
So
Oh.
now the motion, what is before you is the terms of reference as they were presented,
Okay. All right, so
also subject to amendment.
that the Policy and Priorities Committee to receive this report on the Cannabis Advisory Committee, that the committee recommend that council approve the terms of reference for the Cannabis Advisory Committee, and that the committee direct staff to proceed with the advertising to recruit members to the Cannabis Advisory Committee. So, for a vote on that, all in favor?
Oh, no, you need to call for discussion.
Call for discussion again, right?
Well, and clarification, so what are we at now, citizens, Director of Planning?
So that didn't pass. We talked about
Yes, yes.
having 6 up to 9.
Right,
And that motion did not pass.
right, so what's this one got?
So we're back to 4 residents from the community at large, 2 to 3 representatives from licensed cannabis producers, 1 representative from an academic cannabis program, i.e. Brock or Niagara, 1 town councillor, and the Director of Community Planning, or designate. That is what it currently stands at.
Okay. No, I'm happy with that, thank you.
Any other discussion?
Through you, Madam Chair. I think we're gonna be here all night trying to decide whether it's gonna be 6 or 4 or 9 or whatever the number's gonna be. I don't know how we get to a recommendation. I mean, whether it's 4 or 6, I'm comfortable with either one for residents. And,
So unless anyone has any further amendments, you can call a question on that.
Okay, so if there's no other additional amendments? All right, so as it stands then, before you, we'll have a vote, all those in favor of the way it currently stands with 4 residents, 2 to 3 representatives from licensed cannabis producers, 1 representative from academic program, 1 counselor, and the director of planning. All those in favor?
You're, just so you know, you're voting on the terms of reference overall.
Okay, so, all in favor of the terms of reference as they stand? Okay, so all against? And, okay, 3, so this does not carry.
So the motion is lost. Staff is going to need to know what to do with the terms of reference because now there is going to be no committee.
Okay, so I guess we'll have to come up with a number. So I'm gonna propose, can I make a proposal here? It would seem to me, like after our discussion, that the number 9 was the big pickle in the equation. So if we just leave it at 6, would this work for most of you? If we leave it at 6 residents and 2 to 3 representatives, producers, 1 representative academic program.
But you've already called the question and the motion is lost on the terms of reference.
So
We can't go back now.
So we can't go back.
okay, so there's no committee then.
There is no committee right now.
Okay, so what do we do now?
I think you're going to have to go back to a motion to reconsider and bring it back at the next meeting.
Okay, a motion for reconsideration at our next meeting. All those in favor of reconsidering this at the next meeting? Okay, it's
I need to know
unanimous.
who moved that.
Councillor Stewart moved that?
Yes.
Yes. And that was
To
unanimous.
reconsider the terms of reference at the next meeting.
Yeah, and that was a unanimous vote. Okay, so that one will come around again. So do you want me just to check off lost?
Yep.
Okay, 4.4, Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee. That the policy is a motion by Councillor Chofie, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive this report on the Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee, and that the committee recommend that council direct staff to proceed with the advertising to recruit members to Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. Oh, okay.
I just want to tell you, Madam Chair, that I'm in favor.
I'm shocked. Okay, so let's vote on this.
Have we already got a terms of reference on this then? Yes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Any other discussion? Okay, so call us to a vote. All those in favor of this Utility Sustainability Advisory Committee? That's unanimous. Motion carried. Okay.
This one's you, Mike.
4.5, pregnancy and parental leave for members of council policy. Not me. Putting it out there. You guys got that, right? Okay. So Councillor Chofie put this forward, that the Policy and Priorities Committee receive the staff report entitled Council Policy, Pregnancy and Parental Leave for Members of Council, and the committee recommend that council approve the policy at their next regular meeting. Any discussion?
So who drew up this, this?
Not me.
Would that be, I just wonder what department it was. And if it is a standard,
Human resource?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
So is it just, it's a standard, we're not giving out anything extra, it's just a standard agreement that all councils are gonna put forward?
Madam Clerk?
Through you, Madam Chair, there was a significant research that went into the report, checking with various municipalities across Ontario and determining, drawing from different policies. It is mandatory under the Municipal Act, and we pulled together what was most appropriate for what we consider to be most appropriate for the town.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other discussion?
They're pretty standard.
Okay, so we'll call this to a vote. All those in favor?
How many are on this committee? No.
On, you're killing me.
Excuse me, Madam Clerk,
Yes.
does it apply to grandparents?
Sorry, no grandparents. No, no. All right, all those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous, motion carries. Oh, my favorite. Okay. Counselor Chofie put this forward. Adjournment. That this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for April 1st, 2019, following council. All those in favor? All right, this meeting is over.